Today, you'll experience the endgame story of Midnight so far. Here's the moment. It was supposed to be our glorious victory, the gathered armies of the light charging into the heart of the void, xal'atath burning in the righteous fires of the Vanguard, but it didn't go down that way. So how did we go from that to this?
Behold! The dark well opens! Mother!
Well, for many of us, it was clear this was a trap from the beginning. That is xal'atath's MO. It just took Illyria's rage, the Vanguard's blindness and fury and zeal, and Umbric's brilliance to give her exactly what she wanted, which was not Illyria, not our destruction, but rather the means to achieve her ultimate goal. The Voidspire is a prelude to her masterpiece, and today I'll show you how we played our part perfectly. Lor'themar makes the call to arms. The Vanguard of the Light have gathered their strength and are preparing to march on the Voidspire, what they think is xal'atath's fortress. But Lor'themar refuses to march alongside them. He'll stay in Silvermoon to defend, but the Light's Vanguard took everything it could, effectively leaving him with a stripped-down militia. We, however, do march alongside the Vanguard because we are the champions of Azeroth, and if we can do one thing well, it is putting the beat down on our enemies. So we jump through the portal and we find the Voidstorm raging with its self-devouring void wars, and at the gates of the Voidspire, Turalyon himself. Around him, shining like a beacon in the void, are the Vanguard. War Chaplain Sen and her healers, Emmaus Bellumi's shield wall soldiers, Vanel Lightblood's linebreakers, and Korath Mountain Fist's war machines. Mountain Fist. That's this man's surname. Amazing. Illyria is here too, to meet her destiny. But what is that destiny? Is it to end her hunt and slay xal'atath, or is it something else? Does her rage cloud the very real danger she's running into? Meanwhile, Magister Umbric, our resident expert in the Void, has the secrets to burst open the Voidspire. But the Light's Vanguard eye him with suspicion. After all, he wields the Void. Arator does whatever he can to keep this genuinely terrifying force of retribution on mission, but from the very start, it's clear that while everyone wants to defeat xal'atath and end the threat, their reasons are rather different and may just clash. But, with everyone gathered, it is time for war. The Voidspire looms large, and at its gate is Imperator Averzian. He claims to rule the Voidspire and brings his army, the Endless, to face down the Vanguard. 5 immense portals open, and the forces of the Void flood out. Above it all, 2 Void-corrupted dragons swoop and dive, torching the land below, but the Vanguard cannot be stopped. And it's in the chaos of closing those Void gates that xal'atath's true gambit begins to unfold. She taunts Illyria, twisting every truth. Take Turalyon's incident at the gates of Zul'Aman. He wounded Arator, and as xal'atath says, he can now never be trusted. And that even though Illyria is always talking about protecting her family, it was the light residing within her family that broke them. This is the kind of taunting she is good at. It's the needle xal'atath will use to fray Illyria's mind, to bring the Void close to the surface, which is precisely what she will need. But standing in the face of those half-truths is Arator, the actual guy who Turalyon was hurt by. As we learn of the campaign, he is deeply concerned about his father, deeply concerned about the light. But the point is, he went on a journey with Alonsus Fowl to understand balance within the light, that any power can corrupt when it becomes absolute and overcoming within a being. He proceeded to reforge the shield Turalyon lost at the Battle of Blackrock Spire and offered it to his father as a symbol of balance. But Turalyon's mind was still addled with the light's propaganda, and he refused. So with that in mind, xal'atath's words do in a way ring true. Turalyon may still be a threat, and Illyria knows it. But there is no time to dwell. The fight rages until Averzian's portals are closed. But then comes the first unsettling sign that the Vanguard are falling to light blindness. Korth Mountainfist charges the Voidspire's approach by himself, and Averzian manifests in his full might to casually slay the dwarf. One ally down, and the gates of the spire closed. No plan survives contact with the enemy, but in this case, the wheels were already coming off from this very early stage. Averzian is a lord of the Dominar, an aristocracy of the Void whose only goal is to devour their way to the top. We saw their underhanded and brutal methods with Decimus. It suited his purposes to help us, and as long as he got to devour the next Dominar in the ladder, he was happy enough. Averzian, then, is at the top of this ladder, and as the fight begins, he tells us as much. He bellows that his hunger is insatiable, his armies are endless, and he blasts us with such immense power that it creates void-claimed zones, and if too many manifest, his army of the Endless appears and will kill us. Rank upon rank of ethereal and revenant descending like a tidal wave from the Voidspire that can and will wipe raids, and should everything go wrong, could wipe across Azeroth. But Averzian either never realized he was just another piece of xal'atath's plan, or quite simply found himself having no choice but to play along with her to survive. He spent his powers, and just as quickly, we took him down. And with that, the approach suddenly became silent, and the Vanguard would bring forward their light-forged war machines and begin to blast the entrance. And this is where the real fight begins. Inside, it's exactly what you would expect. Xal'atath has strung a web of roadblocks. Turalyon demands we split up and deal with them all at once before we ascend. And first, we storm Behemoth's Rise, a platform that looks out onto the great vista of a void-ravaged world. But at its edge stands a Void Elf, and Arator instantly recognizes her. Void Light Everdon. She is one of the Void Elf scouts that Turalyon left to die during the initial invasion on the planet. Arator rescued those elves, but one refused to turn. Her mind had been fried by the Void, and when the encounter begins, she calls out to the wasteland behind her. That's when Vorasius appears, an Ultradon from the Void Wilds, a pure expression of the planet's will to destroy and consume. And if you look into the distance, you see that Voidstorm is not just a zone, it's an entire planet. And from the side quests, we know it was once known as Predacia, and that it was destroyed thousands of years ago by a weapon that razed an entire civilization, and from the waste of that war, the Void rose. Vorasius rises then from that wasteland, consumes Everdon, and attacks us. It's a straightforward fight compared to the mind-bending plans that xal'atath has in store, but more than anything else, it's proof to the Vanguard of the Light that the Void Elves cannot be trusted. They just saw one willingly sacrifice itself to Vorasius. After Korth, this is now the second time the Vanguard have went off mission, have made a major mistake, have kind of hurt their cause. They're now starting to believe that no one but the rabidly loyal can be trusted. Our next location is the Rift Labs. This is where we find the finest ethereal minds involved in an experiment, but it's not immediately clear what they're working on. Now, these guys work for Salhadaar, right? So it must be something important. But then we hear the screaming. It's the voice of Salhadaar, but it sounds like he's being tortured. He claims he upheld his bargain with xal'atath, the one that we saw in a cinematic, and that this is not what he was promised. xal'atath tells him she gave him all the power he desired. It was just his fault that he couldn't control it. It's classic xal'atath. In the Supremacy animation, we saw what most consider her origins, but she only revealed that piece of her backstory to Salhadaar to get him on side. By that stage, what Salhadaar wanted most was to protect his people, even if that meant doing so from within the Void. xal'atath promised him power to secure that future for his people, but in practice, the Ethereals would only survive if they served her. Salhadaar was taken to the Voidspire and made into a weapon of the Void. When xal'atath needed him, he was there, juiced up with power, mind broken enough to attack anyone she put in front of him. That being us. We fight. He is more powerful than we've ever seen him. but something's broken inside. You can almost start to feel sorry for him, and in his last dying moments, he calls out to Koresh, his homeworld, and simply says that he misses it. So, another villain down, but with each fight, we begin to question ourselves and each other more and more. Should we feel bad for Salhadaar? Well, the Light's Vanguard certainly don't think so. Light-blinded fire is beginning to stream up from their eyes, and to them, anyone who shows remorse for Salhadaar is pretty much just being sympathetic with the enemy. And if they're sympathetic with the enemy, well, they could go further. They could turn. They could be the enemy within. So clearly then, these guys are nearly, not quite yet, but nearly out of control. We just have one more lesson to learn before they actually lose control. With 3 of xal'atath's strongest down, it's time for a final lesson in how cosmic powers are a dangerous thing to toy with. We rush to the heart of the spire to find our way up, but there, blocking our path, we actually find 2 void dragons. But looking into their background, we learn they were once red dragons from Azeroth born to the same clutch. Velgor and Ezorak. And like, say, the nightmare dragons of old, they have been corrupted, in this case by the Void, and they show us how xal'atath was up to more than we thought during Dragonflight. She literally took and corrupted 2 of her own pet dragons. Yet, there's one bond the Void couldn't take, and that is the bond between them. And it's this that's our final lesson in what the Void does. It takes the familiar and it twists it. These dragons from Azeroth, with a strong bond between each other, but twisted. Now, as we've seen, Void is not the only power throwing down here. The Light is about to take its own shot at corruption. Or, should I say, the Light is just extremely powerful, and the people wielding it are becoming, well, unable to wield it properly. Velgor and Ezorak fight with Fang and Claw, raging when the first of them dies. War Chaplain Sen summons light barriers of greater power than we've seen before, and Vanel Lightblood puts himself in a frothing rage, landing blows on the enemy. And this is when disaster strikes. The dragons lie dead in the ground, and with no enemy left to focus them, the Light's Vanguard bleed light from their eyes and charge ahead at us. And in this moment, our unity is shattered, and we're suddenly questioning, why are we here and what is going on? Illyria is questioning Turalyon, and Arator is desperately trying to hold everything together. And that's the exact situation that xal'atath anticipated and counted on. Not because she is some magical Zovaal-like genius, but because she just knows how light, how void, and most importantly, how our minds and emotions work, and she just uses those things to further her goals. It's not that the Light and the Void are big sentient forces that necessarily want something with all of us right now in the plot. It's just how those things are wielded by people. And xal'atath's greatest strength is knowing how to flay people's minds and use them. Suddenly, we're no longer chasing xal'atath. We're chasing the people who just minutes ago were our allies. They're no longer the Light's Vanguard, they are the Light-blinded Vanguard. They charge through hordes of the Void, claiming they are the Light's judgment, and any who stand in their way will burn in righteous fire. Arator, learning the hard lessons of the Light-blind rage, tells them that they will only burn themselves. Now, you may not have seen this, but just take a look at this cinematic clip.
You fight with such conviction, but your light will betray you. In your darkest moment, when you need it most, your light will turn to wrath! And all you'll be left with is ashes.
As you can see, Arator knows this from experience, and not just because his father accidentally slashed him with a sword. No, he has felt the pain of that burning. We catch Vanel Lightblood and we beat some sense into him. Thankfully, he realizes what's happening, and he tells us that he mustn't stray. But it is clear that he's losing control. Bellamy is next. She tells Turalyon that all who tolerate the Void are our enemy. But Turalyon refuses, of course, thinking about his relationship with Illyria and Arator. As much as things are slipping through our fingers, this moment breaks the tension on whether Turalyon will become light-blinded himself. In his own way, he has gained a small amount of the balance Arator tried to give him. We clear Bellamy's head with a tasteful application of violence, and she tells us that she doesn't know what's come over her, but to stay away from her anyway. And here's the thing, we did beat sense into them, but not for long, because they race ahead regardless, and by the time Vanel, Sen, and Bellamy are gathered, there is no more talking to them. They are now completely consumed by the will of the light. So, we're facing down the empowered champions of holy protection and retribution who are dead set on slaying xal'atath themselves, and who do not trust us. With that, the Lightblind Vanguard strike. It's a brutal fight. We're not just fighting our former allies, we are fighting the extreme power of the light. They work as a team, and as each member is taken down, the others only grow in power. That's why you really want to kill them all at once. They do, though, fall, and even in their final moments, they refuse to admit the light has failed them. Their emotional and spiritual connection to the light told them glory was at hand, but all that they met was death. And now, with the Pillars of the Light's Vanguard lying dead on the ground, the plan has truly unraveled. There are so few left, and those that remain are being devoured by xal'atath's trickery. Meanwhile, Illyria's hunt for vengeance has consumed her completely. Turalyon has just slain his comrades in the light. Arator doesn't know how to bring this disaster of a mission to a close, but win or lose, Umbric does know that the end is near. And it's into this chaotic situation that xal'atath levels her final taunt. If she knew we were going to kill each other, she would have just let us. But of course, xal'atath knew this would happen, and as if to prove it, an umbral core appears. A gateway to the top of the spire. Umbric may know that this is the way up, but what he doesn't know is what lies on the other side. We ascend the tower in a torrent of void energy, and at the top, we find Illyria alone and broken. xal'atath calls her the guest of honor and whispers in Illyria's ear, edging her closer to the madness of the void. Turalyon can't be trusted. She can't save her son. All of this was for nothing. Illyria is waging a war for control of her own mind. And as we arrive, xal'atath calls us her favorite champions. She was afraid, apparently, that we would miss what is now about to happen. Arator demands to know what xal'atath is doing, leading to a statement that we all could have predicted. That she is doing exactly what she promised, taking everything Illyria loves and leaving her with nothing but the void. By now, Illyria is losing that battle, and she lashes out at us. Just look at the energy exploding from her body, the pure void shaking the spire to its foundations. Illyria can no longer hold on. The void takes her, and in that moment of madness, she turns on us. Some parts of her remain inside, though, telling us to get away whilst we can. But just as the light empowered the Vanguard, the void has made Illyria an absolute monster. This was the moment xal'atath was waiting for, the true reason we were brought to the spire. It's now time for us to learn why xal'atath built the Voidspire and why this final encounter with Illyria is named the Crown of the Cosmos. Of course, it is a World of Warcraft boss fight. We do win. And I have to say, it's an absolutely amazing fight. It was really cool and normal, and I cannot wait to play this on Heroic. But we do defeat Illyria. She falls to her knees. Arator and Turalyon are with her, trying to bring her back to sanity. And that leads us to the climactic finale of the raid. Illyria tells xal'atath she'll die before she serves. But as it turns out, that was never the point. It likely never was the point. And that is when xal'atath finally does what she's wanted to for a long time.
Now, the moment of truth.
I'll die before I serve you.
Serve me? Despite all we've been through, it was never actually you that I required.
Back during the campaign to take out the Legion, Illyria absorbed the Naru Lura. And when she did, xal'atath, who resided within the Blade of the Black Empire, said this.
The caterpillar has become the butterfly. She is all but ours now.
With that scene in mind, what we just saw is quite something. xal'atath now wields the blade she was once trapped in and uses it to get what she really needed. Which was not Illyria. It was Lura, a dark Naru, a being indistinguishable from a god of the void, and the being Illyria's been carrying around with her ever since. That power threatened to consume Illyria from the very start, but she managed to keep her sanity until this one final moment, and under the most extreme of duress, seeing her husband perhaps fall, perhaps turn into a totally different person, maybe even a villain, worrying about her son's impending death. While xal'atath used all of that to coax the power of that Naru to the surface. Illyria broke, Illyria fought us, and then xal'atath shoved the Blade of the Black Empire into her back. Why? Well, here's why.
No! At last. Beautiful. Behold! The dark well opens!
Like the light's beam sealing the Voidstorm, Lura's energy flooded from the Voidspire, shattering both the Naru and the spire itself, breaching the veil between worlds and shooting directly into the Sunwell. All present fall through that beam. Turalyon, Illyria, us, the Light's Vanguard. Magister Umbric manages to pull himself, us, and Arator from the beam using a void beacon, but the rest are lost. They have been drawn into the dark well. And this is a moment foretold since the Burning Crusade, when Muru transformed into Entropius, a boss from the original Sunwell Plateau raid. Kel'Thas did not realize how close he was to giving Azeroth over to the Void. When Illyria visited the Sunwell after her long exile and 1,000 years of war, Lura couldn't help but explode from her body, drawn irresistibly toward the Sunwell. But what it took was a mind like xal'atath to bring all of this together, to convince us that the Voidspire was her fortress, and that if we fought hard enough, we could end the whole Void invasion there and we could win. We chased her, slew her champions, cleared her roadblocks, all so Illyria could deliver xal'atath what she needed most: the key to the Sunwell's corruption. And now, with the Sunwell transformed, Silvermoon and Azeroth are in greater danger than ever before. Back home, we see a broken sky, the void beam looming over Silvermoon, and know we have to do something, anything, to stop xal'atath. But looking around, it's hard to see what we can do. The Alliance and the Horde are still absent, perhaps unaware that xal'atath's plan is unfolding without them. It has, after all gone down extremely quickly. And until help arrives, all that remains is Lor'themar and his few defenders. So, who will step up to reclaim the Sunwell? Who will charge into near certain death at xal'atath's hands? And once more, what is the fate of Illyria and Turalyon? Because once again, they have been lost. Well, that is what we will see in the next chapter of the campaign and the March on Quel'Danas, which is the final raid of Midnight 12.0. It's when the promise of a united elven people will finally pay off, and it's when we'll finally get an idea of what the rest of Midnight holds.